So this is one of the projects in my patchwork silk pouches. So I started with the little piece with the circles on it. That was a block printed piece. And then I match other colors to that because that's kind of the main visual piece. So I've got another small piece. There's an earlier one I did with the dark purple. In this one I've got that brighter bottom piece with a bit more pink in it. I use my template here just to visualize what it's going to look like. It's the size of the pouch, of the finished pouch. And then I allow a 1/4 inch seam or a 1/2 inch seam around that. So I'm going to cut it bigger than that square. The first thing I'm going to do is put those two small pieces together and do a small seam. Then I do the bottom one. Then I'll have the size to cut the bottom one too, if you know what I mean. Okay, I've sewn this together. I'm only using small seams within the patchwork because I don't want to waste any more than I have to of my precious little images. So I've got that nice and straight. Now I want this width to be 7.5 inches, so I'm going to cut that first. Luckily it comes out to about there, so I don't have to cut my pink piece up into, you know, awkward tiny pieces that will be harder to use. Excuse my old stained cutting board. I've cut many. I also work in paper collage. I've cut many a piece of paper on this. I probably need a new one, but it still works. So now I want this line to be straight. It doesn't matter how wide this is. I'll be figuring the final measurement with my final piece. I'm just going to follow the width of my favorite. This is where I have to keep double checking because silk also wobbles around. So I have to cut a bit of that off. So much easier to work with really straight pieces. Silk is actually harder to cut than cotton with these. That's a nice little square for use in something else. So I still have 2 pieces of that. And I see a pull there. Just smooth it out. It's harder to cut because it's fine. It's so finely woven. I find the looser something's woven, even if it's heavier, it's easier to cut with these roller cutters. Okay, so that's my top piece. And then this piece is just going to be attached to that. So I'm going to sew this piece to this piece, and then I will cut it. Okay, now I have that sewn, and of course you can see this is a huge piece. I need to know where to cut that. So this cut is a little, it's already, the width is already figured out from the 2 top pieces. Just make sure this is straight again. This is a very fiddly way to do these, but because I'm using my scraps and, you know, it's just the way I have to do it. I can't just cut a bunch up. I mean, I could cut squares that big of all the silk and then try to put them together, but that's not how I want to do it. It would be actually a way to use, you know, at some point, a lot easier than trying to figure out all these odd cuts. So I'll cut myself a long strip along here. Okay, I cut that one. And now I have a nice long piece that's way more usable than if I had cut a small piece off. So I'm always thinking of that too as I'm doing this. Don't want to move it while I'm putting the ruler down. It's that sensitive. See, it's not straight over here. Oh, yeah. I can't wait to use up my silk scraps so I can start working with cotton. Okay. I'm wanting to do some block printing on cotton, and I will do block printing videos. Okay, there. So we have one side, and I think the other side, because this takes so long, the other side is going to be one piece, and I'm going to use this. So that will be one cut like that. I can use my little pattern here to see. Yeah, that would be lovely. All right, I've got my pieces cut, except the lining is one piece. I'll cut it when it comes to actually sewing them together. I'm getting confused because I have different sides. So these are both the outer sides. Because it's so fine, I have to have reinforcements somewhere. So I'm using, this is actually just a simple cotton. I use the iron-on for one surface, one front surface. It seems to work for the lining, for the really fine silk. I work on the lining. But on this one, you probably can't see this, but it kind of puckered. And it makes it feel a bit papery. I don't like that. So I prefer the feel of just a second fabric quilted stitch to hold it in place. So I'm going to try that with these. This is a different cotton, so I hope it'll still work out okay. So each of these I'm going to take to the sewing machine and sew something to keep it in place. I'll show you what I decided on when I come back. I can't use white thread for these. I'll have to have some purple thread. And then this is my lining, and because I'm going to have such thick two sides, and this lining isn't as super fine as my other lining, it's still fine. I'm just going to use the lining as it is. I'm not going to back it. So I'm trying different varieties of weights of things because there's really nothing to follow for specifics on a silk pouch. Gosh, I'm looking at these together and it looks like they're not the same size after all. Oh well. I find it, I don't know if anybody else finds this, I find it quite a challenge to cut exact shapes. That's why I'm not a traditional quilter. I don't know how anybody can stand it. Look at this. I measured, I cut and everything, and yet there's a 1/4 of an inch difference. I'll have to fix that. So I'm going to sew these two. Then I have my purple zipper, which is part of a zipper. So I've got this lovely, don't you love that? I think this is my favorite part, as I've already said. So I'll come back when I've got these sewn, and I'm probably partway through the process. Well, if you've watched all that boring video of me trying to choose my silk pieces and having to cut them, you might be interested to see the finished piece. Here are both of those pouches. This was the one you saw me cut up. This was the one that was already chosen, but they're pretty much the same. I use the same kind of pattern on the back. The difference is I use different lining and interfacing. So this one I must have done first, which is the one you saw me cut up. I used the cotton, just plain cotton, sewn to the outside layer. And I didn't use any stiffening on the silk because I thought it was a little heavier silk. Big mistake. What the lightweight, even a lightweight fusible interfacing, what it does is it stiffens the lining. So it's not as likely to bunch up like this, and you won't hopefully end up with this mess of the zipper caught in the lining. It didn't happen right away, but it's happened in like the first couple of tries. I also didn't do a box bottom for some reason, and I didn't do tab zippers. So in this one, I must have done this one second. Obviously I have a box bottom, which is nice, gives it a bit more body. And also I did tabs. Now the lining is a very fine silk. It's finer than that silk, but I use the lightweight fusible interfacing, so it makes it crisp and stiffer. It's not going to just float around in there bubbling up. Now it's possible it could get stuck a little bit, but nothing like this would. So the cotton interfacing, what I've learned is the silk lining has to have the light fusible interfacing. And even this outer layer of this one, now I wouldn't be able to remember, but it turns out I haven't sewn my seam up yet, so I can see I used just sew-in Pellin interfacing. The regular Pellin, it's a woven interfacing, and you sew it in. So it has a really nice stiff, it has a crisp body to it. So that's what I did sew on both outer layers as for interfacing. But this one was just cotton and this one was the Pellin. So everything about this is better. The Pellin is better for the outside. The fusible interfacing, even it's a very lightweight one, but it works for the silk. The tab zippers, the box bottom, everything about it worked better. I did do top stitching. Yeah, everything else was the same. All right, so I showed you the process of putting a few pieces together. I'm so excited about these combinations I have. So I'll show you some of them, and then later we'll actually do some sewing. So this one is a piece I painted, and I've got these stripes. I haven't cut them up yet. This is this, you know, kind of that size pouch I'm going to make, and look at the zipper. I haven't found a lining for this yet. That's not in here. But it will just be a turquoise, something simple lining, I think. Both sides will be like this. I'm going to put these two zippers together with that pull. How much fun is that? That's one of them. And here we have a small one that's actually going to be really, I mean, it's depending on what I can find in my stash. So I kind of have to be a little bit out there. This is going to be a coin purse, so smaller, like about that size. Both sides have the orangey red stripes. And then this will be the lining. Half the lining will be this pinky gold, and this lining will be this sort of mixed reddy orange, mostly red. And then I know this is pretty much out there, but there's some pink in the lining. I had this zipper that's been cut off, so I'm using up all these bits of zippers too. And there's a little orangey. Won't that be fun? I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, that's the lining and the piece. This is another big one. I love this piece. These little lines are metallic paint. This will be about that size. And then the back will be further down. So the back, the other side will get into more of the greens. And then this lovely blue zip with a lighter blue pull. I haven't got the lining for that yet, but again, it will be kind of a general blue or green. And then one more, another fun one. This will be a coin purse size, actually maybe a little longer, because I would like to use most of that piece. There's a cutoff thing there, so it will be that long. And then this beautiful mixture of lime green and blue. So lime green, we've got both those colors. And look at this, I have a lime green and that pull. I love to do this part. I wish I could hand them off to someone else to sew them, to be honest, because that's the slow part. I haven't got the lining for that yet either, so I better go find some linings. And then the next step will be starting to sew some together and show you how they work out. So these are my finished pouches, some of them. I have these three I showed you the planning pieces for, and the zippers and everything. I have done a couple of others, but I'll go through these first. This was the wave one of my favorites. This is metallic, I don't know if you can see that, but I did a box bottom. This was perfect. I think I already explained how I figured out the best way to do them with these purple pouches. So it has a box bottom. I sewed it onto Pellin sewable interfacing on the outside, and the inside is another pale blue silk pongé on a lightweight fusible interfacing. And I didn't do quite the adventurous things I was going to do with the zippers. I did a couple, but this one's just a plain blue zipper, but it does have a light blue pull. It has zipper tabs, and I'm really happy with that. It's a nice, I like the feel of them. They're sort of light and crisp. This one I didn't do box bottoms. I kept it flat. This is a painted silk. I sewed it to the sew-on Pellin interfacing. And I was so excited. I had a lime and a blue side of a zipper and then a lime pull, but the two sides didn't go together, so I couldn't do that. So I have a light blue zipper and just darker blue tabs. Again, sky blue silk pongé lining, which is lightweight interfacing. So same as that, as this one, but no box bottoms. And this one, I did manage to join the zippers. And this is just a little coin purse. So I have the lime and the dark blue. If you don't know how to do that, I could show it sometime, but there are videos on how to put a pull on a zipper, how to fix a zipper, replace a zipper. I think you'll find it if you look something up like that. And then this lining was a lovely pongé silk with some yellow and blue in it. And this one, actually, this was one of my earlier. This doesn't feel like, oh, I know what I did with this. This one I did put lightweight interfacing on the outside as well. And that would work, except it does make it lighter. Not quite as much body as these. But the main thing is that sometimes you probably can't see that. But there's little puckers, little tiny ripples. This side was okay, but this side I got little tiny ripples where I ironed the interfacing on. So that's okay if it happens on the lining. It's not such a big deal, although it doesn't seem to have happened on this particular lining. But on the outside, I prefer not to have that. So I do use just the interfacing or just cotton fabric, and I sew the outside on. And this one I didn't put zipper tabs, but I think it's okay for a little coin purse. It worked out fine. I'm noticing now that it's a little crooked. Anyway, these, I did a couple of very time consuming, just like my purple pouches, greeny ones with patchwork, but I love them. It took a long time. Again, the process of box bottom, everything else. Everything else was the same. Pellin sewable interfacing on the outside. This one I actually did a habitai silk inside, but I still use the sewable interfacing. Sorry, the lightweight fusible interfacing on it. Just keeps it crisp enough when you iron it. It is top stitched actually, but I didn't top stitch the lining. So it just makes such a difference. That lies flat because it has the interfacing. It basically changes the hand of the fabric. It makes it a little stiffer. I love that one, my favorite. And then a bigger one like that with the turquoise zipper and nice green and yellow. I love making the lining something special. So those took me about a month from start to finish, obviously not working every hour of the day, but to go through all the processes of the color, figuring out the color and what to use. That takes enough time. That's the fun part, putting all the colors together. But then even just figuring all the technical things out, because I don't think other people make pouches out of this kind of silk. I couldn't find anything like this. So I had to kind of figure it out as I went along. So that's what took so much time. But I enjoyed it, and I love my little silk pouches. Hope you enjoyed some of the process, and have a great day.